The Supreme Court has just agreed to hear a Mississippi abortion case, which for everybody watching suggests they're very likely to either overturn or limit the landmark Roe V Wade abortion case. What does it mean? We'll talk about it. It's Rob Nelson Live.
Hey, I'm Rob Nelson. I used to host a show on Fox, and now I do a digital live stream called Rob Nelson Live. And my whole mission is to figure out how in this time of division we can find common ground.
Speech, and they're not allowed to do that anymore.
I understand what it's up.
They be focused on rebuilding California.
Oh, it's so true. Come on. This is where this gets real. He says your headings. I wouldn't want to be black and driving in a car. Right. Point there, right? Some of what's in this music, you can't sanitize it.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the show. Glad to have you coming at you today from the virtual studio in Los Angeles. We go Florida, Los Angeles, back and forth to you, whatever platforms you're on, from Reddit to YouTube to Facebook to Twitter to TikTok to Twitch. And as always, love all your feedback, all your comments. I don't get to them all, but I love to hear them. And we got a special second half of the show where I'm going to have one of our very avid and engaged listeners join in one-on-one on camera to go head-to-head with me and see if we can find some common ground. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely you'll enjoy that as the second half of the show. But let's get started with abortion. So a Missouri law, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, was passed with the sole intention of restricting abortion so severely that it would ultimately get challenged in the Supreme Court. A number of states have done this, passed restrictive abortion laws with the sole objective. They knew they weren't going to become law right away. They'd get rejected by each court along the way, saying it's unconstitutional. It goes against Roe versus Wade, the landmark protection for abortion. Hoping one day in the last couple of years, it's all been going on since about 2019, that one case would finally, the Supreme Court would pick it up. That's happened. It's Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. It's a Mississippi law, basically bans all abortions after 15 weeks. So Roe versus Wade protected abortions for basically 24 weeks, with some restrictions being allowed. This basically bans all abortions except like the health of the mother and severe like birth deformities from being legal. And the Supreme Court has agreed to hear it, which to everybody watching, both sides of the pro-life, pro-choice debate recognize the Supreme Court's only picking this case up because they actually believe that they're going to do, if they didn't want to do something to Roe versus Wade, they just wouldn't pick the case up because every court before them has said it's unconstitutional. Each court along the way rejected the Dobbs versus Jackson law as unconstitutional, violating the Supreme Court's protection with Roe versus Wade. So the fact that the Supreme Court's decided to hear this case means they're planning on either restricting Roe versus Wade or eliminating it altogether. They're not going to pick it up just to reinforce the doctrine that's already out there. The lower courts did that. They just go, let it go. It's unconstitutional. They're challenging it. And there's a 6-3 majority, conservative majority in the Supreme Court. So it's a big deal. So let's quickly I don't want to get too in the weeds on abortion stuff, but abortion is one of the most complex, politically divisive issues we face in America. I mean, entire presidential elections, people, single voters, they vote based on, hey, monkey arms, they vote based on whether or not they think a candidate is going to be pro-choice or pro-life. It was one of the big arguments for conservatives to vote for Trump, regardless of what he thought, if he was going to put conservative justices on the court, if he might overturn Roe versus Wade. Lots of people said, who cares if you like Hillary Clinton? Vote for Hillary, period. Just vote for Hillary if you want to protect abortion rights. It's that divisive an issue. So let's just quickly, without getting too in the weeds, let's just talk for a tiny second what Roe did and what undoing Roe would do. So essentially, Monkey Arms, I'm going to get to that. It will absolutely, a great point. You've jumped my conclusion. You've jumped the shark on me, Monkey Arms. But yes, that is exactly what will happen, and I'll explain why. It will only restrict abortion to the poor and the undeserved. Absolutely true. So essentially, Roe created a blanket protection for abortion. Carved it out as a privacy right, creating a blanket protection for abortion, saying it is unconstitutional to completely restrict abortion. You can restrict it to some degree, but you can't say someone can't have an abortion. And what undoing Roe would do is not, contrary to what many people think, it's not that it would suddenly say abortion's illegal. It wouldn't say abortion's illegal at all. It would not say there's no right to an abortion. It would simply say the Constitution does not prevent a state from restricting abortion, all the way down to completely eliminating abortion on a state-by-state level. But it's not saying you can't. You can have very, very pro-choice laws. States like California will have very, very, very open laws to allow abortion. In fact, you could go past Roe. You could theoretically, if Roe went away, you could pass a law that says you can have abortion up to the day you're going to have a baby. Right. So the mistake a lot of people make is thinking if you get rid of Roe versus Wade, abortion becomes illegal. It doesn't, although it doesn't mean certain states couldn't make it illegal. Also, just to clear the facts before we get into the emotional side, a number of states already have laws that essentially will ensure abortion's not illegal. California, Connecticut, Illinois, New York, Maine, Vermont, Utah, Washington, all have state laws that essentially say you can't make abortion illegal. A number of states also protect abortion under their own state constitutions. Alabama, even southern states, Alabama, Florida, Iowa, Kansas, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, and I think Montana, all have state constitutions that protect the right to have an abortion. But there are a handful of states that absolutely have what they call trigger laws, that the minute Roe v. Wade goes away, they have laws that will go into effect outlawing abortion. Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, mostly southern states, Kansas, Minnesota, no, not Minnesota, Missouri, North and South Dakota, Tennessee. So one other one, Utah. Right away would go, boom, it's done. So Roe goes away, abortion becomes illegal, period. But Monkey Arms made a point earlier, and I think it's a good one. The removing Roe would not make abortion legal, but it would essentially raise the bar, making it really hard for certain people to get abortions. Essentially, it would create a massive income inequality about who can and can't get abortions, right? Because poorer people would not be able to get their abortions. It would make it much, much harder. And not having and having an abortion is as hyper divisive as you can get. I found a little clip here of Bussy Phillips. This is like a year and a half ago, talking about how she had an abortion when she was 15, and it's the whole reason she's successful. And just look at how the passion this triggers in people. Crafty, can you play that clip?
I have all of this, all of it, because I was allowed bodily autonomy at 15.
So, again, that's how passionate one side gets on it. And I just want to point out, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy on both sides of this issue. Because on the one hand, you can't really argue that and look, I'm pro-choice and I'm a libertarian. I don't want the government telling people what to do. But it's hard to argue that essentially, people say it's my right to have an abortion. It may be your right to have an abortion, but it's not your right to pretend you're not taking a life when you have that abortion. You are. Science has changed. We all talk about following the science. Science has changed, and we recognize increasingly how early life does begin. I want to play a little clip of the governor of Mississippi talking about this bill.
The fact of the matter is that Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973, and the Casey case was actually decided in 1992. The fact is the science has changed considerably since that time, and every single new piece of information that we get with respect to the formation of unborn babies errs on the side of this is a horrible, horrible thing that is happening in America. And
okay, first of all, how that guy became governor. I mean, he's literally the epitome of like the fat old white dude, right? Like, just like, looks like the old frat boy dude, right? The red-faced Southern, whatever. I probably shouldn't pick on him just because he's an ultra-conservative governor, but he doesn't listen to him. How did you become governor? But he does make a point, and I'm trying to be fair to both sides on this. It's the science has evolved, right? And again, I state I'm pro-choice, but the science has evolved on abortion. And I think the idea that one side says, let's go with pro-choice. It's my right, my body. I'm allowed to do this. It's not really a life until a certain point. Let's be honest. It's a life like very early on. And the simplest example of that is, let's say you are pro-choice, right? If you're like 6-7 weeks pregnant, 10 weeks pregnant, and you find out, you've got a baby, you and your partner, you could be straight, you could be gay, doesn't matter. You two, the couple finds out we're having a baby. and somebody mugs you in the street and punches you and causes your baby to miscarry, how many parents, to hopeful, expecting, wanting that child, go, it doesn't really matter, it wasn't really a life? No, they won't. Literally, they're like, you killed my unborn baby. In fact, most states will prosecute you for the murder of the unborn baby as a secondary murder. No expecting parent of any political persuasion looks at the death of their unborn child at any age in time and say it wasn't really a life. Women have miscarriages and they're devastated for years. So to pretend you're not taking a life is utter hypocrisy. You're taking a life. Now, you may argue you have the right to take that life. You may argue it's my body first. I have a right to end that life, but you don't have a right to claim you're not ending a life. And that's what too many on one side of this do. They go, it's not really taking a life. It really is taking a life. Just may be within your prerogative to take it. People on the other side who say, well, see, that's the problem. No one has a right to take a life. It's an unborn life. It's innocent. It should not be allowed to be taken. Well, if you're going to be, if you're going to go Jesus on this, right, thou shalt not kill, period. No exceptions. You don't get to kill when it comes to capital punishment. You don't get to kill when it comes to self-defense. You don't get to choose when you decide it's okay to take a life. So many on the right who are very pro-choice are very pro-death penalty. Well, again, you're taking a life, not within your realm to do. And my view's always been the state should not be interfering in decisions about life-taking in almost all instances. I'm not a big fan of abortion, but I'm a big fan of protecting a woman's right to control her body and make that choice while acknowledging you're making a choice to end a life. Same way I'm okay with somebody pointing a gun at you and you shoot them first. You've taken their life in self-defense. We justify all kinds of life-taking. We just justify it when it fits our kind of political narrative. And again, as a libertarian, it's my body, my choice, which of course leads to the irony of why we don't look at vaccinations that way, just as an interesting sidebar, right? Like the whole notion, like, don't tell me what to do with my body is why I don't like them telling me I have to take a vaccine. I don't care why. Well, you might kill an innocent life. Well, you're killing an innocent life when you have an abortion too. I'm okay with that. It's, again, for me, the paramount interest is my privacy, your privacy, protecting us. Greed monkey arms, what I do and take out of my body isn't the state's business. And I think that goes across the board. I think it goes to drugs. It goes to taking a vaccine. It goes to using drugs. That's why I'm in favor of legalizing drugs. I mean, I'm a true libertarian when it comes to this stuff. But the argument still gets squished down into these things. And it's interesting how people so passionately make the argument. So I found a clip on Instagram. These two girls, young women, see, I said girls, now I'm already like a misogynist. No. I call guys and girls though all the time, and I'm just going to keep doing it. They put out a video, and it started picking up and trending in a lot of places. And I just took a couple teeny excerpts of it. Crafty, can you play the IG vid?
Wait a minute. If you live in the United States and you have a uterus, you're going to want to hear this.
What's happening right now in the Supreme Court is the most important thing that has happened in our lifetime. If we lose Roe v Wade, women will die from backstreet abortions. Because an abortion ban doesn't stop them, it just stops safe ones. Abortion will still be available to the rich.
Okay, some great points there. But here's what's interesting to me. I can't help it. I always see like how one side sees something one way, the other way. Those are the same arguments people make about guns. Have you thought about it? They're the exact same arguments. Taking guns away won't keep people from having guns, just means that people you don't want to have guns will have guns. Taking abortion away won't mean people can't get abortions. They'll keep having abortions. They'll just have them in back alleys. And rich people will still go ahead and get them where they want. It's the same argument. And it comes down to this notion that people on the left or people on the anti-gun movement, the gun control movement, often say rights aren't, no right is like absolute. You can whittle away at every right, even free speech. I've obviously argued, I'm like I'm up there with, the ultimate, I'm in favor of all speech, all free speech. But, the Hugo Black argument, but the former Supreme Court justice. But at the same time, if you're going to argue no right is absolute, unfortunately, you can't argue it for one right. You can't say gun rights aren't absolute, but abortion rights are. The reality is we look at rights as being able to be tempered down. And if you're going to argue you shouldn't have gun rights shouldn't be gone, well, the other side's going to argue, no, I get my guns, but you can't have your abortions. Well, the other side's saying, no, I get my abortions, but you can't have your guns. Both sides are playing at the same game, and it all falls apart. And here's the problem. The real problem with Roe v. Wade is that Roe v. Wade, and this is where it gets a little controversial, but the problem with Roe v. Wade, and this gets to a bigger problem we have in general, is it's built on a really flawed basis. Again, I say this as a person who is pro-choice, not pro-abortion. I don't want people to have abortions, but I don't want to tell women what to do with their bodies. But it's built on bad law. And if people have argued, no, it's not. It's the new thing to try to argue it wasn't built on a faulty premise. In 1973, look, I'm not the first person to say this, right? Lawrence Tribe, the well-known, very liberal Harvard constitutional law professor, basically said it's terrible law. John Eli, the former Yale professor and my professor at Stanford, said it's not just it's bad constitutional law because it's not constitutional law. And John Eli was a liberal. He was this Chief Justice Warren's clerk, as was Lawrence Tribe. I think Edward Lazarus, not to go too in the weeds on this, but I think it matters what scholars say. Edward Lazarus, who was the former clerk to Blackmun, Justice Blackmun, who wrote the Roe versus Wade opinion, said, as a matter of constitutional law, Roe borders on the indefensible. And he says, I say that as someone committed to the right to choose and someone who views Justice Blackmun, who wrote the law, as almost like a grandfather to me. So the problem for Roe is it's built on this really shaky premise. And just so you can now go like the 2-minute version where you can go, if you didn't know this, I now know this, like you can outsmart your friends. Here's why Roe is so shaky. Roe was built on a premise that there's no constitutional right in the Constitution to have an abortion. There's also no constitutional right in the Constitution to have privacy of any kind. It's a fact most people look past. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have a right to privacy. Absolutely nowhere. The word privacy isn't in the Constitution. All our privacy rights have been carved out on a thing that they called the penumbras and emanations of the Bill of Rights in the 14th Amendment. And it all started when Justice Douglas ruled on a case called Griswold versus Connecticut, which was the first big privacy case. It was saying that married couples had the right to contraception. Right. And that it was been ruled not, states outlawed it all over the place. And he argued, no, there's a privacy right. And this got used around gay rights, around social justice rights. All kinds of privacy rights have been built out of this argument that there is a thing called the penumbras and emanations of the Bill of Rights. Okay, first of all, what is a penumbra? Literally, Roe is built on the penumbra. I looked up what a penumbra is. A penumbra, I'm not making this up. A penumbra is a partially shrouded outer region of the shadow cast by an opaque object. That's what a penumbra is. Okay, so these privacy rights were built out of that and what they called the reasoning by interpolation. I don't even know what that word means, interpolation. That's how they define privacy rights. That's what Roe was built on. So one of the arguments, Hugo Black said it's a stretching of the Bill of Rights. And one of the arguments against that whole thing is that it makes them very vulnerable to going away because they're not really written in stone. They're not even written on paper. They're not even really written, period, anywhere. They're just literally kind of reasoned out of the ethos. The problem for me goes way, way past abortion. It goes to the fact that we have no privacy right actually in the Constitution of the United States. Yeah, I am a penumbra, monkey arms. I'm a total penumbra, shrouded from the opaque. If anyone can explain that definition to me, literally, it took me 5 minutes. Partially shrouded outer region of the shadow cast by an opaque object. That's a penumbra. I guess the opaque object is like the 14th Amendment of the Bill of Rights. I don't know. But the point for me is, we don't have a privacy right in the Constitution. Moving past abortion, and by the way, before I leave abortion behind, I just want to say, ending Roe v. Wade will not, I'm going to reiterate, will not end abortion. It will not end abortion rights. It will not make abortion illegal, but it will certainly make it. It will absolutely make it that you are less certain to be able to get an abortion in certain states. And certainly the poorer you are, the less likely you will be to be able to get that abortion, right? It will create an absolute economic inequality. On the other side of the coin, it will allow states to actually create whatever abortion laws they want. And those abortion laws can be as strong or as narrow as they want. So theoretically, you can re-elect state legislatures who do what you want, which ultimately in the long run will be better. I truly believe even in southern states, this is part of the problem before I leave abortion. Trafty, can you put up a couple of those tweets we have? We have a couple tweets and I'll just run through them. We got a guy talking about the 5 Republicans. Crafty, pop up a couple tweets for me. Okay, we're going to get to those tweets in a minute, but here's the thing. So it is a form of discrimination. The problem people have is that they think that, one side says, we're not going to let a handful of Republicans, or white men or, a conservative president dictate our future rights. The problem for particularly the pro-choice side is that they often act like most people agree with them. And the problem is most people don't. It's so evenly divided, Gallup's done polling on this for like the last 10 years. And in their most recent 2020 poll, they found the same numbers they found for the last decade, which is basically an almost even split. 47, 47, 48, 48 who are pro-choice versus pro-abortion. It's literally half and half of our country splits on this. And since 75, they found that half the country thinks abortion should be legal only under certain circumstances. So half the country thinks it should be whatever you want. A Morris poll said that 65% say that Roe should be reinterpreted to do one of two things: send it to the states or stop abortion altogether. I mean, it's like go one way or the other. And Morris found that literally it's like 44-47 thinking abortion's morally okay versus it's not. And some numbers change. Pew finds it a little higher, higher number pro-choice. But the bottom line is we're so evenly divided on this in this country on that issue. And that's part of the problem. So my instinct is sooner or later it's going to crumble in the Supreme Court. Let states decide. And seriously, if you live in a state that's hyper restrictive, then you need to get the votes to move that state to be less restrictive. If you can't, well, then it is sort of the will of the people. Does that create an unfair scale for certain people? Yeah. I mean, again, people argue it's essentially forcing poor minority women to be forced to have children. I mean, the great irony around reproductive rights is the original reproductive right was the right to have a child. Now it's the right to not have a child. And again, reproductive rights becomes a complex, both political issue and a gender issue. And by the way, if we're going trans and all that, if gender and sex doesn't matter, why does one side need a protection like that? But that just undercuts the whole notion that there isn't biological sex. There is. And in biology, only women can have babies, unless you're AOC who says somehow men can too. I'm not sure how yet, when. But, again, it's not going to go away. Sooner or later, they're going to undo Roe because Roe doesn't really hold up. What that will do is create an opportunity to really push forward if you're pro-choice and win that argument in the court of public opinion. But the bigger issue that I want to kind of wind this down on is around privacy. Why don't we have a privacy right in the Constitution? Why do we not have a right to privacy? Why don't we make a privacy amendment and put everything we want in it? A privacy right to our bodies, a privacy right to our data, in a technological era, a privacy right to the choices we make, a privacy right to our whatever liberties we want. It's not there. We need a privacy right. And the fact that we don't have one, that we keep inventing it out of the Penumbra and enumerations of the 14th Amendment is a joke. They literally built something on a shaky foundation. I don't know why the founding fathers didn't have a privacy right, because privacy wasn't viewed the same way it is today. It's certain rights against, like, you can't take my property. We had property rights, but not privacy. And we live in an age where privacy is so paramount, and yet we whittle it away day by day by day by day. We whittle our privacy away. Patriot Act, I've said for years, Patriot Act was the first big whittling. We had the Iran war or, the Iraq war. Boom, all of a sudden we have to take your privacy rights away. We got to be able to spy on you guys. We got to look at people. It's for your own safety. You go through TSA. We got to look at everything. We got to check everything you've got for your own safety. Everything's for my own safety. Everything is for my own safety. I'll always remember Clinton's former Homeland Security advisor saying basically, he called it kind of this fake form of security, Potemkin security, make us feel good. Makes you feel good to know you're safe, but how much you're willing to give up. You know, it's why I argue on the COVID stuff. Like, again, the lockdowns, all of it, the vaccine stuff, I don't want to give up more. I don't want a card saying what I did or didn't get in my body. I don't want it. It's my privacy, you know, even around speech and certainly around tech issues. But last note on this, I thought it was fascinating that one area where privacy is really, or, you know, tech stuff, tech stuff's really whittled away our privacy. The Amazon Ring. You know the Amazon Ring? So the Amazon Ring is a thing that allows cameras secure. You put these cameras on your property for security. The Guardian wrote a great piece about the Amazon Ring. And they said 1 in 10 police departments right now have access to videos from millions in the US, from millions of private homes who have cameras, and they can access those without a warrant. If you're in the Amazon Ring system, 1 in 10 police departments already can access those cameras. They don't need a warrant to do it. They're your private security footage. They can access it. You know, I mean, at what point are we going, wait a minute, do you really want the government being able to watch what you do and from your own cameras without your permission? But we just let it slide. We let our privacy just erode, slowly seeping away like we don't care. Forget about accepting all cookies. I mean, it's like we've implicitly given a lot away. We're giving more and more away. And a last note on this, what fascinated me, if you look at the problems they have around stuff like Amazon Ring, one of the big issues that come up is facial recognition. Facial recognition technology is one of the biggest areas around privacy, but also around racial bias. You know, there's been a lot of talk around the ethics of facial recognition and Google fired a bunch of people when they came out and kind of said it, you know, like said, basically it discriminates. Facial recognition technology discriminates against Black people and women. I'm not making this up. I'm not. It gets people wrong. If you're Black, it's more likely to misconfuse who you are and connect you with the wrong person. And if you're a woman, white men come out best in facial recognition. I am not making that up. It's not something they planted in it. Why does the technology actually mimic real life where we mistake? They say it has to do with light and all this darker pigmentation, but literally facial recognition technology confuses who a Black person is way more than it does who a white person is, particularly a white man. It thinks you're one person and you're not. The implications of that are huge. We identify you. We say we saw it in facial recognition. We got you. We got the wrong person. How many more police shootings are you going to get out of that? But all of it comes back to how much we value our privacy. And abortion is a privacy issue. We've just handled it, looked at it in the wrong way. And we keep staying stuck in the same cycle, the all or nothing cycle. It's getting us nowhere except probably Roe versus Wade this fall. If it doesn't go away, gets eroded so far down that sooner or later we're going to have to move to the next step and start going, how do we fight for this right? How do you fight for this right in a more honest way and in a way that's ultimately going to be more democratic? All right, moving on. Special segment right now. I decided to do a new thing where I'm going to have users come on and go one-on-one with me. And I'm just going to try it out today, and we'll do more of it. This is different than just, calling in. We'll actually do a whole segment with someone. So I have one of our longtime and very active, often vocal critics with me, Tyler from Facebook. Tyler, jump up onto the screen with us. There he is.
Hey, Rob.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Tyler, I don't want to reveal too much of your personal info, so you're just going to be Tyler from Facebook. But you can feel free to share whatever you want about yourself, your life, who you are. For viewers, I don't want to put too much out there because you've shared a little with me. But if it's okay if I just say Tyler is Tyler, let's just get the tiniest bit of your background. Obviously, you're in television production type stuff. You're in the entertainment media industry. But you also, and I call you a liberal. If you've watched the show, you see Tyler pretty much throw shade on me every other sentence. But you, in fact, have a rather interesting background. You come from what you might call a bit of a redneck roots.
Absolutely. Yeah, I grew up on a cattle farm in Montana till the age of 24 and then moved to Los Angeles. And I've been in the film industry for about 24 years as well.
And do you hate all rednecks?
No. In fact, I identify with them 100%. I absolutely understand, I can easily switch over into redneck mode at the drop of a hat.
Wait. You mean you could literally become like redneck guy and be like, racist and...
I was raised by them. Absolutely. Raised by them, bigots, racists, all that. So it's
but you aren't one, right? You are actually, because I watch your posts, you're very much a progressive. You're like left almost a Bernie.
There's a weird dichotomy in me where I do have to fight those things that I was raised with. And it wasn't necessarily built out of hatred or true belief. It's just bigotry. It's just small-mindedness, and it's something that you just pick up from uncles and other farmhands and grandpas and grandmas, and but it is something that I can switch into. I could play a great racist character in a show.
But could you switch into it in reality ever in your head? Could you actually could you see yourself having a racist view that some part of you goes, yeah, I kind of agree with that? I'm not saying that critically of you. I think most of us have bias in our heads that we fall into, right? Even people who pretend they don't. I always use that example. You can be the most progressive liberal person in the world, yet you ear to the left when you see a big black guy on the street.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can hold both of those. I think you can hold both of those ideas in your head at the same time. And I think that I have a problem with the term racist, because I don't honestly believe that people with different skin colors or different cultures are less than or have less potential. But there's definitely a bigoted side that I was raised with that I don't subscribe to, but it's something that I'm definitely aware of. If that makes sense.
And for people watching who haven't watched your posts, would it be fair to call you a self-claimed left? Are you a leftist? What are you?
I think I'm a maverick Democrat. Honestly,
a maverick Democrat. What does that mean?
Liberal. I believe in healthcare for all. I believe in paying lots of taxes and investing it in children and education. I'm a big gun rights fan. I enjoy my guns, but I have a little different view on guns than most right wingers. I don't think a gun is to necessarily protect me from my neighbor as much as it is to protect me from the state.
Well, you're going all in Second Amendment.
Militia. Yeah, I have yet to see a politician or a neighbor try and take a gun away from somebody, but every day on the news, I see policemen, I see federal agents killing people for having a gun.
Do you like cops?
I don't have a problem with cops, but I prefer when they're not around.
Okay. All right, let's get into some politics, Tyler.
Sure.
Let's go politics. And I'm going to just ask you to sit back up a little from your thing. Yeah, just a little bit so we're more centered on you there. And I'm giving you full permission to go ham on me for whatever you want. Let's tune it up for the audience. We're going to take a topic. I gave Tyler a heads up on the topic. And Tyler and I are not like good old buddies, whatever. We've known each other through the show recently, and I decided because he was so on with stuff all the time, it'd be great to have him be the first person to come on and do this with me. But Tyler, full permission to take me down on anything. I want to go with the Capitol insurrection stuff. So for those of you who've been watching the Crafty, I don't know if we have a video. I don't think we have the video, so we're going to skip it. The recent thing is that they want to do a bipartisan commission on the Capitol riots, and 5 guys, men or women from each side. So 5 Dems, 5 Republicans, 2 chairs, 1 chair is the Democrat, 1's a Republican, but they have to agree on everything. So you can't call up a witness if both chairs don't agree or a majority doesn't vote. So it really is bipartisan. And one side doesn't get an extra vote, can drive the thing. And Democrats are for it. It passed the House. A handful, 30 Republicans shifted over. The Senate is Mitch McConnell's already said, not going to do it. It's partisan. It's unfair. We're not going to do this. It's going to die in the Senate. They need 10 votes in the Senate to get it through. It's going to die, which is right away triggered the whole issue of what are Republicans afraid of? They don't even want a bipartisan commission to look into this. I want to start there. I want to get into the whole insurrection thing with you. And then I want to talk about the big lie, Tyler. And we've got 10 minutes to do all of this.
Fantastic.
So let's go. Bring it up, Tyler. Let's go. Don't hold back on me. So
I think you and I have
insurrection, big lie. Start with the insurrection. Give it to me. I'm going to try to defend whatever I can defend that's on the other side of what you say.
Okay. I think can I ask you a question? Actually,
yeah. Ask me whatever you want. You can grill me. You can do whatever.
People are calling it a protest, right? There's an idea that it was just a protest, but I want to know what they were protesting.
The rioters?
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know what it was that they were protesting.
I think they were protesting what they think was an unfair election result.
And where would they get the idea that it was an unfair election result?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a guy called President Donald Trump. Yeah, but come on. Let's go there. I'm serious. You believe that the insurrectionists you believe Republicans are full of crap. Come on, you really do. I've seen tweets and stuff you say. You think Republicans are literally a party in deep denial. I don't get that listening to you right now, but that's what you think.
I do. Well, I mean, I do. I think anyone with an objective point of view can see what happened up at the Capitol and not sit there and say, oh, well, it was just, it was just these people with an agenda. It wasn't political at all. It was, it was just a few bad actors. And then, I don't know if you listen to C-SPAN at all, but I listen to it every morning because I love listening to the people that call in. There are people that call in that absolutely 100% believe that it was Antifa, that they were bad actors, that they've been hiding undercover, that there was some covert operation, that Nancy Pelosi's son was there on the steps and he's photographed there. Why aren't they prosecuting BLM? And those are the real criminals. And it's like that part of it astounds me.
It's delusional.
It's absolutely delusional.
Look, I know there's people out there who still think Joe Biden's not real. That he's like somebody acting, sitting in for him, and Joe Biden's like somewhere like sick or dead in a basement, right? I mean, literally, and QAnon saying Trump's going to come back they move the date. It's like the end of the world thing. But I get that, yes. But is that most Republicans? If you're a mainstream Republican and you're against this commission because you think, Mitch McConnell's not delusional, right? I mean, he thinks it's political. He thinks the Democrats will use this as a political weapon, which they will. They'll run it throughout the campaign, every election.
How can it not be political when one political party, when the president of the United States from a political party created the insurrection? I mean, if a politician is going to break the law and you try and prosecute them, then can everyone just call, oh, well, it's just political, so it's not
point. Well,
I have a hard time with that.
It's fair point. But people question the integrity of the election, not just Trump. I'm not defending Trump's big lie. But, would you at least concede that, after Hillary's election, people question the integrity of that election too? And, we've had Congress people in multiple elections in the past, Congress people argue, I'm not going to certify the results. It just never got any press. And I'm not defending what Trump did. I'm saying the notion that people wanted to use a legal process, not the insurrection stuff. I hate even calling it an insurrection. It makes it sound like they almost brought the U.S. government down. It's like, okay, they were a bunch of thugs who went and charged in. Bad behavior, yes. Our constitutional republic was never about to crumble.
Imagine if they were Muslims.
Well, imagine
if they were Islamic extremists and you were going to say, oh, well, they were just.
Well, then, if that had been the case, you're right. If that had been the case, Republicans on the right would have gone crazy, and people like AOC, would have said, hey, you know what? They've been repressed for too long.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There was something in that. I told you that when I saw the BLM. When I saw the riots happening in BLM and I saw people crashing into the CVS and stealing shit out of the store, I had violent ideations when I was watching that because what I saw was a miscarriage of justice and it looked wrong and there was nobody doing anything about it, right?
But you're unique then.
When I saw people doing that to the Capitol, I had the same violent ideations.
Okay. So basically, you've got violent ideations, and we need to lock you up in the new woke protection group.
But I understand.
Angry white man.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. But I understand as a citizen watching injustice happen, right? And then as a patriot and a red-blooded American watching people deface and defile and attack the Capitol is different than criminals breaking into CVS.
I agree with you. I actually agree with that. But if you're on the right, it's not that you don't think it's different. You think that look, I was at a lot of these things in at least one city, two cities at different times. The I don't think I'm not trying to compare them to say they're exactly the same, but the level of violence was not high, but it was significant. I mean, it wasn't like more than the level of nonviolence, but there was a lot of violence at a lot of these protests. And
absolutely,
I talked to violent people at the protests, and I had people saying to me, like, yeah, it's payback. Like, we don't care. And I think the frustration on the right is that it got washed away. The media kept saying not violent, not violent, so they have a right to do this. So again, it's that thing where all of a sudden now when people on the right, a small number, same as the rioters at the protests, do something bad. Now this is like really bad, whereas the other thing was let to go. Do you see why people on the right react? Because they think you never paid attention to it when it happened on the other side, even if they're not literally.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I felt the same way about both. I felt the same way about both. However, one of them was built off of a systemic of black men being murdered in the streets that actually happened. That was a true event that everybody saw. And that was the spark for those protests. What happened at the Capitol was based off of a giant lie.
Okay, and I'm not 100% guys taking a side. I fully agree with you. I'm challenging a little bit. I agree with what I just said before, but on this one, I'm saying a lot of people would say, well, yes, it's true. What happened to George Floyd 100% was like a brutal, like a murder on the street, basically.
It's been going on for decades, yes, and thousands.
Yes, it has gone on. But also people argue, and I'm the first to say there's systemic and racial bias in policing. But, people often argue at the same time, like everything has become about, something against, somehow it's racial. Every act has a racial implication to it. And, again, I don't want to get too into the race thing because that's a whole nother thing. But I'm saying I'm sort of, in my mind, I guess I'm asking you as someone on one side, because in your comments in the show, you often seem to see no validity in the other side. Do you understand people on the right at all?
Yes, I do. And here's what I'm going to say. If let's just flip the script and let's say that Joe Biden won the election. Joe Biden wins the election, and let's say that the people at the Capitol went up there and actually affected something that installed Donald Trump as the acting president. Let's just say that happened. I would absolutely pick up a gun. I would absolutely, if something like that happened, I would absolutely be there as a red-blooded American. But that's not what happened on January 6th.
No, but that wasn't my point. My point is we've made January 6th into something much bigger than it was. A handful of people. It was
the president of the United States saying that the election was the most powerful person in the world saying that this was stolen from you.
Yes, he was saying that.
If Bernie Sanders got up,
now you're going.
Bernie Sanders, because the only people that I think that could challenge the right would be the Bernie Sanders crew. If he got up and said, "Take to the streets, fight for your country," you're going to have about 25 million rabid youngsters that are motivated. They're going to
listen. I agree with a big part of that. I voted for Bernie in the primaries. But here's what I want to say. I'm not defending Trump saying that. But I believe that we set that in motion. Trump's big lie was preceded, like I said a couple of weeks ago on the show, by the other big lie, which was from day one to delegitimize his presidency, to literally go after him and say he wasn't a legitimate president, to say he colluded with the Russians when they couldn't prove collusion with the Russians. They said they still had. When Mueller couldn't find it, they said he still had. Then they got like one thing after another to bring his presidency down. So from his point of view, and I'm not defending what he did. He's going, you guys delegitimize my presidency the whole time. I'm going to delegitimize yours. Again, two petty things don't make a right. But I feel like people on the left don't like to admit you did that to him for 4 years. What did you expect he was going to do? Just bow out gracefully?
Did Barack Obama say, there's some shenanigans here? Did Barack Obama hold a rally and say, hey,
Clinton did.
Country? Did Barack Obama get involved? Did the president of the? It's different. No. It's different. It's different when the president of the United States does things. It's just different. It's different than Maxine Waters saying something. You know what?
You're right, but at the same time, it's different when the president does it. But when the entire political establishment on one side and 90% of the mainstream media does it to the president for 4 years, and he's an egomaniac president who's like divisive, What do you expect is going to happen? But if you're his supporters and you feel for 4 years you've watched your president that you voted for be delegitimized, you're very susceptible to being told they're cheating on you. They're not being fair to you because they already felt they hadn't been fair. I'm not defending Trump. I'm asking, can you understand why half the country who voted for him isn't literally delusional, which is what it seems like you sometimes suggest, that all Republicans are delusional, like they're just making this up versus they actually feel they have something.
I agree. And I'll just say that what Trump did doesn't surprise me. And what the people who love Trump did to follow him doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is the competent, in the know politicians on Capitol Hill were complicit in it. They just were like, oh, well, let's just see. Like the Mitch McConnells, they knew that the election was legitimate. Mm-hmm. They absolutely knew that Trump was lying. They knew that it was all hyperbole, and you had none of them saying, hey, everybody, chill out, the election's over. And they just kicked the can and they let it build and they just continued.
All right, fair point. All right, fair point.
They just allowed it to build. And those people know better. Donald Trump doesn't know
I'm
better.
going to challenge part of that. Fast Eddie put up, Trump was saying this way before, and I think that's true. Look, Trump was saying the election was rigged from the start. That was Trump's MO, right? Everything that isn't going my favor is rigged, and even before it's done, I'm going to say it's rigged in case it doesn't go my way. I think we can agree. That's kind of Trump's MO. Claim foul before the foul even happened. In case I lose, I was fouled, right? You know, and right. So again, none of this on my part is to even remotely defend what Trump did. But I do think a lot of people felt, understandably, on the right, that they had watched their legitimately elected president get delegitimized the whole time, and then combining what he said and combining the fact that, look, let's be honest, Democrats took advantage of the pandemic to get as much unchecked mail-in balloting as possible. Do I think there was fraud? Yes. Do I think it was like systematic? No. Do I think it was enough to overturn the election? I doubt it. They'll never know.
You think it was all on the left?
I think the majority of it was because it was mail-in voting. Look, the reality is I know people, and people got ballots who didn't even live at those places anymore. I mean, unchecked mail-in voting is going to lead to a higher concentration of votes in the communities that vote by mail, which are going to be more urban, Democratic-oriented communities. The Democrats knew that. They knew they'd get more voters, and they knew they'd make it easier. And again, I'm all for more expanded voting access, but I'm just saying, you know, cynically to pretend like there was no fraud or whatever is not as bad as what Trump did, but it created part of my problem is the other side can never concede anything either, Tyler. You know, Nancy Pelosi will just keep saying, you know, this just shows how immoral, and you've said this in your tweet comments, how amoral the Republican Party is. Instead of going, look, I get why you guys have a grievance and I get, you know, where you're coming from. Your president lied, but I get, like, there's no sense of that. You know, there's no willingness to go. It's just to take the other side down, and it just digs their heels in. I guess my point is, where do we go from that? How do we get any progress if that's what we're doing?
Well, I think that it kind of starts with not having I think it starts with not having a perfect situation. I mean, to look at something like what happened with Donald Trump, to say, oh, well, they tried to delegitimize him from the get-go. Donald Trump had a massive hand in delegitimizing himself. Just constant lying and just over exaggeration about everything, promising one thing and doing something else, and you know, and being a known entertainer, a known, you know, he's speaking in hyperbole. The most, I'll never have a chance to golf ever in my life. I'm going to be too busy.
Tyler, we only got about 2 minutes left. You hate Donald Trump. I get that.
I don't. I like Donald Trump. I think he's a terrible human being and a terrible president. But he's an entertaining guy. Okay,
but you think he was bad for America?
I would. But here's the thing. I was looking. When he got elected, I was like, this is going to be interesting. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. He's going to shake things up. And then when I saw the way that he was doing things, and I saw the way that he did things and the things that he said, he lost me. I was willing. When he got a lot of my friends were like, "Are you nuts?" I was like, "Yeah, it'll be interesting." I mean, a lot of what he says makes sense, but then he surrounded himself.
I get it. I like the fact that he was a disruptor from the start as well. I'm a disruptor person. I agree with you. He was a very divisive president and ultimately did so many things wrong that I lost my ability to like his disruptor status. But
right. That happened to me too.
But my question is, as we wrap this up, do you, do you support my idea that ultimately both parties are bankrupt? That neither party can really claim the moral high ground? I guess that's my problem. Yes, you can throw Trump under the bus, and yes, you can say Republicans who stand for him are amoral and are sucked into the Trump web, when I would argue they're not sucked into anything. They know what the Democrats are doing. They want to protect their party's prospects in the future. But Democrats do the same games, or do you think somehow one party's better? Because my thing is both parties suck, and we need an actually independent third party that represents kind of the 80% of the middle of America that doesn't go into either extreme.
Yeah.
Everybody else start new.
I think you've got a point. I think that throughout the course of time, certain parties have been more corrupt than others, and certain parties have been more misguided than others. And I think right now that the left is actually in a good place and the right is completely lost its way.
Well, I'm not saying. Well, why couldn't you have said this 20 minutes ago? We could start there because now we're out of time. But okay, but you think the left is in a good place, the right's completely lost its way, which is my point. I think both sides have lost their way, and if we keep, the right thinks you are wrong. They think the right's in a good place and the left has lost their way. So how do we get anywhere if both of you think the other side's completely lost their way and acknowledge your side hasn't? That's a thought. You don't have time. That you get 20 seconds to answer because we have to wrap.
I think dealing in honest debate, and instead of arguing just for argument's sake and conflating things and muddying the waters and talking in hyperbole and talking in platitudes, I'd really like to hear people just say it like it is. And I think that there are people. I think that the people that grab the headlines aren't the bread and butter of the Senate. If you listen to any old debates from like North Dakota or things like that, there's a lot of really good politics.
But again, and fair enough. But I think both parties are corrupt and bankrupt. And I think until both sides acknowledge that, this cycle will continue. I don't see anybody having the true moral high ground. I know, Tyler, you said you think the left does. We could do a whole other one of these.
I think they've been corrupt in the past, and
they're still corrupt. Come on, they're not suddenly not corrupt. Nancy Pelosi's as corrupt as you get. She's Mitch McConnell on the left.
You think AOC is corrupt?
I think AOC. I don't think AOC is corrupt. I think AOC is a unique political force. There's a lot I like about her. I think she is a little bit too driven toward media, and I think she doesn't. There's things I like about what she does. I don't want to be insulting in this. I think often she's more media centric than she's going to stay on her message. And I sometimes don't know if she were willing to actually expand to involve and see the other side. I don't know. She's a polarizing force. So I don't think she's corrupt necessarily. No.
Keep your eye on John Ossoff.
Yeah, I know you're a John Ossoff fan. All right, Tyler, my challenge to you and everybody out there who agrees with Tyler is try to come to the point of seeing that your side is perhaps just as flawed as the other side. And if you're on the other side, realize that you don't have much moral high ground either. For me, it only makes sense when we realize how effed up both our parties are and how effed up all our division is, that we are literally going to just keep it's like we're never going to move closer. We're just going to keep segmenting. But there's this huge chunk of people in the middle, a populist middle that wants something different. And they're out there. And I think all of us fade into that a little. Let's find that. It's Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for watching.